Chernobyl is on fire, and every atom of uranium is like a bullet, penetrating everything in its path. Now, Chernobyl holds over 3 trillion of these bullets.
On April 26, 1986, the world witnessed one of the most catastrophic technological disasters in history when the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant in Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union, suffered a massive explosion. The detonation released an unprecedented amount of radioactive material into the atmosphere, affecting not only Ukraine, but spreading across Belarus, Russia, and reaching as far as Scandinavia and Western Europe. It was a disaster of unimaginable scale, not just in terms of human cost, but also in its environmental and political implications. And the story of this tragedy is what the HBO miniseries Chernobyl brings vividly to life. The series does not shy away from the technical and bureaucratic details that compounded the disaster, nor does it gloss over the personal human suffering and courage that defined the events in the days and weeks that followed. Watching Chernobyl, one is struck by the harrowing balance between scientific complexity and human drama. And it is in this balance that the series finds its lasting power. The story begins in the immediate aftermath of the explosion, capturing the confusion, denial, and fear that swept through the plant and the wider Soviet infrastructure. The series meticulously portrays the mechanics of the reactor, the failure of safety protocols, and the dangerous ignorance that surrounded nuclear technology at the time. Yet it is not merely a technical exposition, it is a human story. Firefighters, engineers, and ordinary citizens become the unwitting heroes who confront the invisible enemy of radiation, often at the cost of their own lives. Their bravery is contrasted with the political and bureaucratic obstacles that hindered an effective response, showing a system more concerned with appearances than with human survival. As the narrative unfolds, viewers are drawn into the moral and ethical dilemmas faced by those in power and those on the front lines, witnessing the interplay between truth, secrecy, and survival in a society that could neither admit nor fully understand the scope of the disaster. One of the most compelling aspects of Chernobyl is its relentless attention to detail. Every sequence, from the eerily quiet corridors of the evacuated Pripyat apartments to the sterile offices of bureaucrats far from the reactor, is constructed to evoke a sense of dread and inevitability. The series captures the claustrophobic tension of containment zones and the invisible danger of radiation in a way that feels both grounded and cinematic. It also delves into the science behind the catastrophe, illustrating not only the physical explosion of the reactor core, but the chain reaction of lies, miscommunication, and human error that allowed a localized failure to become a continental threat. The meticulous research that underpins the storytelling lends an authenticity that makes the horror more palpable, more immediate, and inescapable for the viewer. As the series progresses, the narrative expands beyond the plant itself, showing the ripple effects of the disaster on surrounding communities and the heroic, often desperate measures taken to prevent a further catastrophe. Soldiers, scientists, and ordinary citizens are sent into lethal environments with minimal protection to construct makeshift containment efforts, decontaminate towns, and prevent further explosions. These human stories are interwoven with a critique of institutional failure, exploring how ideology, pride, and fear of embarrassment can exacerbate even the most urgent crises. What emerges is a story not only about the raw power of nuclear energy, but about the human cost of hubris and the courage required to confront an enemy that cannot be seen, smelled, or heard, but is deadly in its omnipotence. Throughout Chernobyl, the series maintains a tone that is simultaneously clinical and profoundly emotional. It refrains from sensationalism, instead opting for a somber realism that allows the horror to speak for itself. Moments of quiet despair, small acts of heroism, and the intimate suffering of families affected by radiation are all presented with restraint, creating a cumulative emotional impact that lingers long after any single scene. The storytelling emphasizes that the disaster was not an inevitable accident, but a tragic convergence of flawed design, human error, and systemic denial. By humanizing both the victims and the heroes, the series encourages viewers to reflect not only on what happened in 1986, but on how societies respond to crises, the importance of accountability, and the ethical responsibilities of those in positions of power. Visually, the series is striking, utilizing muted colors, stark lighting, and haunting imagery to convey the desolation of abandoned towns, the starkness of industrial interiors, and the ghostly aftermath of radiation. Cinematography and production design work in tandem to immerse viewers in a world that is both foreign and terrifyingly familiar. The series also demonstrates restraint in depicting the physical consequences of radiation, focusing instead on the unseen but relentless effects on the human body and environment. This choice heightens the psychological impact, creating a pervasive tension that mirrors the uncertainty experienced by the characters themselves. Every frame feels deliberate, every pause meaningful, contributing to a cinematic experience that is immersive, thought-provoking, and deeply affecting. The narrative structure of Chernobyl further amplifies its impact. By shifting perspectives between scientists, bureaucrats, and everyday citizens, the series presents a multi-dimensional view of the disaster, allowing viewers to understand the complexity of the events and the myriad human responses to them. The writing does not simplify the science, but rather incorporates it into the storytelling, making the technical understandable without diluting its significance. At the same time, the series never loses sight of the human element, consistently grounding scientific explanations in the lived experiences of those who faced the consequences of the catastrophe firsthand. This balance between technical accuracy and emotional storytelling is what elevates Chernobyl from a historical dramatization to a profound exploration of human resilience, moral responsibility, and the cost of truth in the face of denial. At its core, Chernobyl is a meditation on sacrifice. The series does not romanticize heroism. Instead, it presents it as a necessity born of circumstance, courage, and moral clarity. The engineers, firefighters, and scientists who risked and often lost their lives are not motivated by recognition or reward, but by a sense of duty and the understanding that their actions were critical to preventing a continental disaster. Their stories are harrowing, poignant, and above all, human. The series highlights the contrast between these individuals and the bureaucrats whose decisions were driven by pride, fear, or ideology, illustrating how the consequences of leadership, or lack thereof, can reverberate across generations. In doing so, Chernobyl serves as both a historical record and a timeless warning about the dangers of hubris, secrecy, and the dehumanization inherent in rigid systems of power. Even years after the disaster, the legacy of Chernobyl remains relevant. The series prompts reflection on nuclear power, governmental transparency, and crisis management, encouraging viewers to consider the lessons learned and those still unheeded. It is a story that resonates far beyond its historical moment, offering insights into the human condition, the fragility of systems designed by humans, and the courage required to confront invisible threats, both natural and man-made. Watching Chernobyl is an experience that lingers. The series does not provide easy answers or neatly resolved narratives, reflecting the enduring complexity of the disaster itself. Instead, it challenges viewers to grapple with uncomfortable truths, to recognize the human cost of denial, and to honor the sacrifices of those who acted with integrity and bravery. It is a story of mistakes and heroism, of bureaucracy and courage, of science and ethics, told in a way that is as haunting as it is illuminating. In the end, Chernobyl is more than a historical dramatization. It is a meditation on responsibility, resilience, and the enduring human struggle to confront forces larger than ourselves, forces both natural and man-made. By immersing the audience in the intricate details of the disaster, the human stories entwined within it, and the moral and ethical dilemmas it provoked, Chernobyl achieves a rare combination of education, emotion, and cinematic excellence. It reminds us that history is never just a series of events, but a tapestry of choices, sacrifices, and consequences. In revisiting the